Hey boys, how's all doing?
Boys,
Hey, MT, what's happening?
The usual, man. We'll do a quick hello, how you doing? How's your week been? And then get stuck into questions. We got so many questions.
that's good.
I know this week we tried the anonymous little app, and you send your anonymous questions. And we got some funny ones, but we got some really good questions. And I don't even know if we're going to get through them all, but I've kind of categorized them: comp prep, nutrition, personal, and bodybuilding industry. So I'm going to try to start off with the comp prep ones, and then I'll move through as we go. But quickly, week update for me. Not much has changed since last week, except I did hit a new weight low, and it's been staying down there over the last couple of days, which I'm really happy about. Coach is happy with how things are progressing, and yeah, everything's feeling really good.
Yeah, well, I'll just say I had the best week of training I've had in, man, what feels like honestly a year. Just like recovered, strength coming back. I'm feeling amazing, and I got to see Trimboli and his jocks this morning. So I'm feeling good, man. Like there's no better way for me to start a Friday than to strip Trimboli down and see how much separation he has in those legs, man. Insane.
I'm feeling a little bit left out that I wasn't a part of that little let's roll me down and have a look. You guys just trying to keep me on the outer.
I might have some sneaky photos I might post up later.
Nice. I reckon when we get to closer to 2 weeks out, I'm going to have to jump in on that Friday morning session. I'll move some clients around so we can get it in.
Yeah.
And I can get a little flesh. Yeah, good. Yeah, nothing really to report from me, man. Kind of the opposite of MT. I actually had an all-time new high in terms of weight where I've been, but similar to MG, training's been unreal at the moment. I feel like tipping over a certain body weight's just allowed me to do things in the gym that I've never been able to do. So everything's going pretty good, but otherwise just stock standard, getting ready for season B.
Awesome, man. All right, Let's get through these questions. I'm going to start with some content-related ones, and then we will knock them out. All right, so I think this has come off the back of our last podcast, Scotty. These two questions that are coming up. One is, why did you advise training after the comp instead of just doing cardio?
Yeah, so in terms of doing cardio, for a lot of people, cardio can be a bit of a monotonous, arduous task at the back end. It's a little bit lifeless, so to speak. Whereas, obviously, we spoke about how typically we're pushing in a lot of carbohydrate on the day of competition. And other than posing, we're not really expending any energy. We're trying to keep everyone off their feet elevated. So essentially, you're in a massive surplus. It's not a refeed. Most of the time, I know with my athletes, they're eating more than they would need to be able to, maintain scale weight. So obviously, they're going to be in a surplus, and a lot of the times they're going to be doing another show. So essentially, we just want to wash off all of that carbohydrate, all of those extra calories that we've consumed. And when you're that shredded and you go into the gym, you're going to have a ridiculous pump. You've also had all that sodium, so your body's primed for a great workout. It makes a lot more sense to go through a really quality 90-minute, maybe even 2-hour session. Most of the time, it's a lower body session or an entire body session. Wash off all that food, hydrate, and then reset, and obviously get ready for the week ahead. Because if you don't, and essentially you've potentially been in 1,000-calorie surplus and you've got to go again in a week's time, if you're trying to, push conditioning again or just trying to work out how you're going to peak if the peak didn't go the way that you planned, it makes it really hard to be able to gauge how you approach those last few days, because essentially the data that you have in the first half of the week isn't really going to be honest, because obviously you're going to have fluid retention, you've consumed more calories than you need. So sometimes it can misinterpret where you're actually at, versus if you have a really quality session that night, like I said, wash off all that carbohydrate you've had, hydrate well, reset. Normally within 48 hours, you're back to baseline. And then again, you can assess the look and decide, whether you need to push calories in earlier or whether you need to diet a bit harder. So it just makes more sense to do that. Versus if you're doing cardio, yes, you're going to expend energy, but an hour of quality weight training versus an hour of cardio, you're going to burn more calories lifting weights.
And I think the other thing is typically motivation's at an all-time high, right? After you train, well, I can't wait to do it again and dominate. So like motivation's high. It potentially can be one of your best looks. So like there's a lot of upside to it.
So obviously you're just saying in summary, cardio is not going to cut it. Better off doing a weight training session, most likely full body or just lower body. if it's how long can you leave it post your coming off stage? If some people are finishing late at night, like some of the girls, bikini girls, are finishing late at night, is it okay to do it the next day?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously there's an exception to the rule. Like say, for example, this season B, I think bikini, I reckon we're going to be like bikini. I'm grateful I don't have anyone on. It's going to be like midnight, man. So obviously in that case, you would say have some potassium, have some magnesium, hydrate well, go to bed. And then when you wake up, ideally probably just train fasted on some EAA. So at least that way your blood aminoacidemia levels are going to be, relatively at baseline. You're not going to be breaking down muscle. And then go and train. But otherwise, if you're finishing at 2, 3, 4, even 5, most of the time you'll be just, especially if you've had a good showing, you'll be amped up and you just want to get in there and get after it, especially after bearing in mind that training intensity tapers typically 3 days out from where your show is. So you've basically been on a deload for 5 days straight, eating more food. Your body's primed to go in there and get after it.
And think like you've just come off stage, you're going to get an awesome pump and you've got a tan on.
Why wouldn't you go?
Awesome gym photos, man.
Yeah.
Awesome gym. You can definitely get some sick photos in. Now, you just said something about tapering down towards the show, which we spoke about last time, but there was a question that came up. So let's link into that one. How close to the show do you keep cardio in?
I think it depends on if the person's ready or not. So, and again, this sort of came down to last week we were talking about with training and whether you push food in earlier. It's really case dependent. So if you've got someone that's ready, like in an ideal world, if you're ready 2 weeks out and you're pushing calories up eating into the show, then ideally you're also pulling back on cardio or taking it away. So ideally the last few days, you're not doing any cardio at all other than, your basic steps. But even then, I don't know about you guys, but I take my steps down. So if a show's on a Saturday, they'll be baseline on a Wednesday, they'll be baseline on a Thursday, and then they'll probably maybe be around there, depending on how much carbohydrate you're pushing in, and depending if it's male or female, but they'll at least half, and they won't be like an active go for a walk. It's just like miscellaneous movement around 4,000 to 6,000, but just try and stay off your feet, because otherwise you're just going to end up burning through all of that carbohydrate that you're trying to top up. But if you were someone who was like, say, you do the IC and VIX, and then the feedback from the judges is you need to push conditioning, then you may need to, like if they're like the size is good, the look's good, but you're not lean enough, then I would essentially run it all the way up to the Friday if we had to, and then push, an aggressive backload, which is not ideal. But if you got someone who's knocking on the door of a pro card and they're like, you're just not, conditioned enough, then maybe you need to ride them all the way through, as crap as that is. Yes, you may run the risk of obviously you're going to have a lot more systemic and physical fatigue, but essentially if that's the difference between you going all the way and not, then sometimes you've just got to run them all the way in. So it's case dependent. But in an ideal world, you wouldn't be doing any cardio 3 days out. You're really pulling back.
Yeah. All right. Awesome, man. Okay, let's jump on to the next one. I think this is prep related, so I put it in that category. Had a massive binge the day after my refeed. I hate myself for it. What's advice on communicating it with my coach? Do you want to tackle that, MG?
Yeah. Look, I think this happens far more common than us. Maybe far more common than gets talked about.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes having the conversation is the best thing that you can do. But in terms of discussing with your coach, the best thing you can do is relay the information to the coach as soon as it happens, right? Because, it may affect the next decision that gets made. If the coach doesn't know and you hide it from him or him or her, and all of a sudden, they're looking at your plan or your tracker and you're logging your data and, they're expecting a weight drop, but you go up or things stall, and they might make a move and play one of their pieces that you need, in the last week of prep or the last 2 weeks of prep, and all of a sudden you're giving away unnecessary pieces. Just be open and honest. I don't think any one of us, and any decent coach out there, is going to, bite your head off or stop coaching you if you have, an episode where you go off plan. We understand how these things come about. We'll definitely have a conversation with you on things that you can potentially do to avoid it happening again. But yeah, I think too often these things get hidden from coaches, and potentially that can cause a move in the prep that is in a lot of cases not necessary.
Yeah, I think that if you're asking this question, you don't have a good relationship with your coach. You don't have an open, honest relationship with your coach, to be honest. It shouldn't be a dictatorship. You shouldn't be scared of your coach. Your coach is walking side by side with you. And it's like your little conscience, it's like your best friend. It's the person that you talk to get advice off and to know what to do and what you shouldn't be doing. You should really be telling your coach as much as you possibly can that you're comfortable with. So the advice is to talk to your coach, 100%.
Yeah, and like
anything on that, Scotty, or we'll move on?
No, I think that's pretty good. And to be honest, most of the time, if your coach's checking system is where it sort of should be, they'll be able to see in the data. But essentially, comp prep's not. It should never define who you are. It's just something that you do. So the whole I hate myself for it. That's probably the biggest thing for me is like you're a human being. Like at the end of the day, if this happens and your coach, grills you to town on it, then as you just said, it's a bad relationship. So I think you need to obviously address and identify what caused it, what could we do better next time. But essentially, as you said, you just need to have good dialogue and know that you guys are in it together. Yeah.
Do you guys just one quick thing? Do you think that it's far more common after high days and refeeds?
Yeah, can be.
I think it depends on that person's the personality type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, like getting a taste of an increased amount of nutritional intake tends to lead to them potentially going off the rails more so than when somebody hasn't had a refeed for a long time. I would say that like in my history, just, for the athletes that I work with, those that have gone off plan and, let's call it, in some cases, not even a binge, but just like over calories and stuff has typically been around, when there's been a planned sort of high carb or refeed though.
What I normally do is if I know someone's the type to maybe do that and they can't handle really high palatable foods, and that's probably what they're going to pick on their refeed day, I'll actually tell them what to eat on their refeed day. Because if they're the type of person to be like, cool, refeed day, all right, macro mic everything, I'm going to have bagels, I'm going to spread everything with honey and eat all, they're setting themselves up for failure for the next day, because then they're going to go back to their not so palatable normal prep food and they're going to feel like they're missing out. So I'll actually say, okay, I want you to actually have rice, potatoes, banana, and I'll actually tell them what to have, because I know they're the type that if I leave the door open, they'll pick foods that they know the next day they just will want to crave even more.
Yeah, essentially, again, I think you should just stick, and this is what I always do, just eat more of what you've been eating.
Yeah.
Because at least that way, and again, we know when we sign up for contest prep, you're making sacrifices to highly palatable food. Food is fuel, so essentially we're giving you more fuel, whether it comes via a crisp potato or a donut. Again, what potentially is going to lead to GI distress and a binge, or what is going to fuel me, satiate me, and serve purpose, which is the whole point of the refeed. It's not they're not prescribed to make you just go off and just eat anything and everything. That's not what it's designed for. So I think eating just more of what you've been eating is just the most sensible and probably the safest option.
Yeah, and it's a smart decision from the coach to do that too, because it's almost like a refeed is almost like a little mini peak week practice, because in peak week, you're going to be carb loading someone potentially and telling them what carbs to eat, right? So you can see how their body reacts. So potentially a way for your coach to see how your body reacts when you actually do get a refeed, similar conditions to what you would do in a peak week.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Why is it that every prep I start, I gain weight in the first 4 to 6 weeks? Calories are decreased, cardio is added, but I gain weight. And it also says PED cycle starts. So I know that's probably a separate component that I'm not versed in. Maybe MG, you can be versed in that. But I'll just quickly say that if you're gaining weight at the start of your prep, then maybe the calories that you were tracking against in the off season, or what you thought you were doing, or what you were relaying to your coach, or your tracking method, or how you're going about things, wasn't as accurate as you thought, and maybe your coach has set a plan in place based on that data and that information, which was inaccurate. So that could be a reason. So that's why it's super important that in your off season, or even having the transition into your prep, which a lot of good coaches will do, is they'll start to transition you into your prep so that you start to act like you're in prep and operate like you're in prep. So things are pretty stable, so they can set your prep up perfectly from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like that's obviously like potentially inaccurate data input prior to prep, but there's a few factors. Like think about this: you start prep, you go hyper focused, right? Your food goes down, potentially your bowel movements aren't as regular. Your water intake goes up, right? You might have been drinking 3 liters. You're in prep. You're taking your big 9-liter bottle everywhere with you now. You're drinking 5 liters now. But I mean, above all of that, if that's when you start your PD cycle, I mean, that right there would be like my number one answer to that question. Some of these compounds, have the ability to, if you triple your testosterone from what the previous week to the next, if you think that that's not going to help you hold or gain muscle tissue, regardless of where your calories are at, you're wrong. So above and beyond, the day-to-day factors of like sleep, water, and obviously the passing of stools, just starting the PD cycle will be one of the big reasons why your weight is going up.
And also perhaps, as to lean on what you were saying, MT, if your weight in the first 6 weeks and your off cycle is linearly increasing, like granted, first week you might see, as you said, if you're consuming more water and there's a little bit more systemic fatigue purely from doing cardio flat stick, granted that I don't think that's something that you should probably be doing from the get-go anyway. They're tools that we use when we need them. But essentially, if your weight's linearly increasing for 4 to 6 weeks, to simplify, you're not in a deficit. You're eating more food than you're expending. So either your training when you're in the off-season was greater than what you're now doing, which I would find hard to believe if you're doing cardio and you're training and you're in prep and you flick the switch. So the likelihood is that you're just eating more food than you need to. And that would come down to, as you said, perhaps if you were like, okay, May 31st, I'm starting prep, but up until May 31st from July the year before, I was just eating intuitively. Well, then you'd have no fucking idea exactly how much you're eating and where your baseline calories are.
Yeah. All right, boys, next one. I'm going to link kind of 3 of them together because they're all similar topics, all right? So let's see how we go with this. I'm just going to read them all out real quick. So how not to be a sore loser if you don't win, or how do you not feel defeated if you lose, right? And it's kind of linked. I want to link it to this question too. How do you deal with clients who continuously have a negative mindset or headspace? Do you find it harder to coach them or less desirable to coach them? So they're kind of linked in a way, but let's start off with a sore loser or feel deflated after you lose. Do you want to tackle that, MG?
Yeah, I mean, I think like when we make the commitment to prep, I think any good coach should sit the athlete down and set expectations as to what to expect, not just throughout the journey, but also on show day. And we certainly know that in a subjective sport, you can feel like you've done everything right, and we probably are one of the sports where you can do everything right for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and someone else can just show up who's an absolute freak, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So, and I think that part of that falls on the coach to set the expectation as to what to expect when you do hit the stage. But at the end of the day, everybody who competes has been in it for different amounts of time. Again, we're in a sport where genetics obviously play a really big part. So I think that, and this is certainly what I do with my athletes is, if you've competed more than once, and I think typically it's people who have competed more than once that are more likely to be disappointed in the result because, you've got that first show out of the way, is just to make sure that every time you show up on stage, you are absolutely better than you were last time. That is where the victory lies, as well as everything that you get along the prep journey, all the victories, the ability to get so much done. Like, we all know like how active we become during prep. We take a lot more initiative. I find that I'm far more productive, and most of my athletes are as well. So Just learning to appreciate the victories along the way, and just to know that when you show up, as long as you're better than you were last time, then you've won. And any coach, I'm sure, would be really happy with one of their athletes showing up better than they did last time, regardless of if it's a first or a fourth place.
What do you think, Scotty? Sore loser, deflated after losing?
I think it's okay to be deflated after losing, to be disappointing. We all want to win, but unfortunately, there's only one spot on the podium for the top place. So I think managing expectations is very important for both yourself and your coach. But I think at the end of the day, if you're a true lover of this sport, it goes beyond, not to go too deep in it, but it goes beyond just winning and pro cards. Like, you have to just truly love the process. Like, if someone said to you, you'll never ever get to compete again, like, for me to ask you, both you guys, would you still track your food? Would you still train, try and be better and try and improve your physique?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And so would I. So I think the advantage that we have in our sport is that we get to go through that process and then display it on stage. But essentially, we're leaving that up to, it's not like where if you play football and you kick more goals than the other team, then you win. You're putting it in someone else's hands, and it is, sorry to reiterate it, but it is a subjective sport. So you have to be willing to just accept that you may, in your eyes and your coach's eyes, you may deserve to win, but it might not go that way. And unfortunately, that sucks. But if you place all of your happiness and purpose around that outcome, then at some point you're destined to fail. Versus if you look at, okay, in 2016, this is what I looked like. In 2018, this is what I look like. And the same in your off seasons, like compared to where I was in 2018 to 2020 to 2022, if you're constantly improving, then essentially you're winning, because that's the whole point. If you truly love this sport. So yes, it's okay to be disappointed. We can't all win and we want to, but one thing that I hate seeing is when people lose or if they don't, they might miss out on overall and then they just throw the fucking toys out of the cot. I think, especially in this sport, everyone knows everyone, and first impressions do last. And there's a couple of people and I'm not going to name anyone, but there's someone that I can think of vividly. I remember before I'd even competed, I'd seen him compete twice and completely lose his shit and crack it, and this is bullshit, and then go backstage and sulk and sook, and now competes in a different federation. And I'm just like, everyone sees you carrying on like a spoiled little brat. You wouldn't accept that from a 10-year-old, if they did that. I wouldn't. If my son did that in a basketball game or football, I'd whip him into line. But I think it's just, you need to remember that, again, not everyone can win, but the way that you conduct yourself speaks volumes. The way that you are backstage, people see that. So if you want to be perceived as an arsehole and you want to carry on like a spoiled little brat, then unfortunately, if you do that on stage, people see that and then they remember it. And the judges would see that too. If I was judging and I had someone didn't win and they cracked it and then started sooking and bitching and then complaining on social media, you can't say that if they competed again, there wouldn't be a part of you that wouldn't just be like, I don't want this person to win because I just don't like their values. I don't like the way that they go about it. And it's a no for me.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I agree. Again, reiterate what all you boys said about the coach setting expectations. And I think, you see a little bit this in the industry where coaches explicitly out there, and even the clients are explicitly out there saying, I'm going to win a pro card. I'm going to win the overall. I'm going to win. You're going to win. You're going to win. You're setting someone up for failure or disappointment, or to be a sore loser, because you can't guarantee that. I would never tell a client something that I know I can't guarantee. I can guarantee I can make you look your best. Guarantee that. But I can't guarantee you're going to win. Now, it's okay to have the drive, the goal, and determination to want to win, right? But still knowing and setting an expectation that potentially you may not win. It's a subjective sport, as we said. It's up to the judges. We don't know who's going to be there on a day. So you need to set that expectation, but still wanting to try to win. That's perfectly fine. Having a goal to want to win is perfectly fine, but not being disappointed if you don't, because you have the expectation that it could potentially not go that way. But being your absolute best is something that we can guarantee that we're going to be able to do for you as a good coach. So how expectations are set are going to be super, super important. And I think, yeah, as you guys said, just wanting to be better every single time is really the win there. And try to take your emotion out of your loss and analyze why you think you lost, what the other person had better over you, and then try to improve that in your off season. That's your goal right there. That's your drive for your next show right there. You're setting your goals and your intentions moving forward. I would love that. I would love to know exactly what I need to work on in my off season, so I know that I have a better chance of winning next time. So sometimes take the emotion out of it and think, okay, cool. I'm going to use this as fuel. I'm going to use this as goal setting for my next comp.
Yeah,
and I think in the depths of the off season, that disappointment can be your greatest weapon, because you might win your open class and then you lose the overall narrowly. And like, let's use the example, Big Matty, who again was really stiff not to win his pro card, and he lost to Callum in the previous season. He was so humble. He carried himself really, really well. And I have no doubt he would be thinking about that moment every time he is going to perform a heavy set of deadlifts or squats or having to do cardio. And that's why when he does win his pro card, it'll be that disappointment and that drive that he used to get him to where he wants to get to go. Because everyone's failed at some point. Everyone comes across adversity, but I think true professionals and true champions are the ones that they will take that disappointment and it'll just burn, and it'll be a fire, and it will sit there. It might be 2 years, it might be 3 years, but eventually when they do reach the end destination, it makes it so much more worthwhile, versus if you just won all the time, you wouldn't have the same appreciation for if you haven't won. It took me 3, 4, 5, 6 goes, because then when you do, you understand just how much it means to you and what it took to get to that point. It holds more value.
And I think the third part of the question, MT, which is, is an interesting one, is like, how do you deal with someone who's like really, really negative, right? Really negative. And if they're negative all the time, does that affect, your desire to coach them? I think, we kind of touch on this part a little bit earlier. If you've got a really good relationship with your coach, your coach will always be there to extinguish those negative thoughts and break it down for you logically as to, why you don't need to be feeling or thinking that way. But I think it's undoubtable that, if you have someone who is like that 24/7, 7 days a week, and every interaction you have with them is of that negative nature, that, it certainly does, spoil the taste a little bit, and it does make it harder to coach. It doesn't mean that, for me personally, that I would stop coaching that person, but like, I think, we'd be lying to say that if, you're around someone 24/7 who's constantly negative and just will not change their views no matter what type of explanation you give of the situation, I think it definitely does make it harder to coach. But I'd be interested to get your boys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, for me, I'm more of a people pleaser, but I'm not the type of person to do something for someone that I know it's not going to be advantageous to them for the future. So if someone was like, they're always negative and they're always complaining, like, I just want to appease them, I won't do that if I know in the long run it's not going to help them. But I actually like, not all the time, but I like dealing with those type of people, because it makes me a better person learning how to deal with them. And also, I love proving them wrong. When they're so negative and they're like, I'm not going to do well, I'm not going to look good, this is always a failure. And then when they succeed, you're like, fucking told you so. And I like proving them wrong. I like proving to them that they should believe in themselves and they should see how great they really are, and reassess, because we always like transforming clients and seeing big changes in clients. And to see a negative client turn into a positive client, an optimistic client, is a massive win. And it's something that I enjoy a hell of a lot in my job. So I sometimes thrive at these clients, and these clients that they know who they are, I'll call them out on it. And I'll try to change their mindset, and I will change things around and like talk them in a way that makes them be optimistic, be positive, see the positive side of things. And they're always glad when I always call them out on their bullshit and push back at them. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm just being a sook, aren't I? Oh yeah, actually, no, maybe you're right. So I enjoy it. I sometimes enjoy dealing with those people because they're the biggest wins. That's where sometimes you get the most pleasure out of coaching people like that, when you transform them and turn their mindset around.
Yeah, and I think as coaches, like, we understand that these feelings and thoughts are going to creep into everybody along the journey of a 30-week calorie deficit.
Yeah.
We're definitely prepared for it. Yeah, I think the question was like, someone who's just refuses to change, their mindset into a positive, can't see the positive light anywhere. It definitely can be a difficult situation to coach, but I don't think any of us and any good coach out there would ever give up on a single individual.
No.
It's just the art of coaching. I think it's, you get, unfortunately, not everyone is going to be all smiles, everything's going great. But as you just said, you can look at it as an inconvenience, or you can just, I'm similar to you, MT, I'll just view it as a challenge and look at putting in place some tools. But typically there'll normally be a reason as to why they have that. And it's just trying to, again, via good dialogue, break down why are you feeling that. And again, I'm a big advocate of support the person and challenge the behavior. So it's like, why are you like my workouts are shit, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, you're only sleeping 5 hours a night. So if we make that 8, maybe you'll have more energy. Yeah, but I'm still tired in the mornings when I train. Well, have you tried having your pre-workout meal or eating a bit more the night before? And so again, I think you just have to keep throwing tools, solutions at them. And I can honestly say, I don't think I've really had anyone that you weren't able to then eventually just find common ground and then just find a different approach, because we're human beings. We're different in the ways that we go about things. Not everyone's wired the same way. And that's what makes the art of coaching so enjoyable. And that's what's so important. If you treat every athlete the same, you're not going to end up with an advantageous outcome, because none of us are going to be different. Everyone responds differently. You've got some people who you could just say, you need to pull your finger out, like sort your shit out, versus someone you might have to be a little bit more nurturing. And that just comes down to knowing your person. And that comes with time and building a relationship. But I don't think anyone would ever just throw them to the curb, because I think most of the time you'd have the skill set to be able to shift the paradigm and bring them over to greener pastures.
Yeah. And then on the flip side to that, there's also clients who are like, go through 30 weeks with zero negativity once. And if anything, become more and more positive as the prep gets deeper.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I see, man. Every time I see, I'm like, I'm just waiting, like, Chimboli, you tired yet? You tired? You hungry? Like, no. Like, give me something,
Yeah, I told you today, like, I'm improving. Like, my mood, everything is improving.
Well, what did you say to me this morning? You're like, I want to stay, the way I feel right now, I want to feel this way all year round, right? No, how many people say that 4 weeks out?
Yeah, I said, I reckon I could say this shredded year round. I feel pretty good.
Yeah. So
but then I've been doing this for 26 weeks. I probably don't know how good it actually feels to be in an off season anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we spoke about losing. Let's talk about winning, right? So do you look at people in your team and know if they will be competitive, top 5, top 3 on the stage? What do you think makes these people stand out over others? Obviously, knowing that they're going to be up against other people and not essentially knowing where they're going to place. But, do you see people in your team that you know are going to be competitive, potentially place well, and how do you pick these people out? Who wants to start?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely athletes that come forward or potentially who have competed before who have, standout features. And I don't mean features as in like a muscle group, but like potentially more mature muscle, denser muscle, can get into like really, really elite level conditioning. These are all things that stand out, but I suppose you never really pick someone as like a winner. But I feel like as coaches, we get a good inkling who's going to be up in the top conversation based on, those types of things, shape, symmetry, muscularity. And again, those that have the ability to get down to elite level conditioning will generally always be in the top conversation. I think, if you look at the last few seasons of competitions, anyone with, that top level conditioning has always been in the conversation. And if we know as coaches we can achieve that with someone, then they'll always be in our mind as a top tier athlete.
Scotty?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're saying that you can look at someone and not know whether they're going to have a successful season, I don't think you can say they're definitely going to win an overall and they're going to be a pro card. But granted, I've got people competing and I'm like, I'm pretty confident that they're going to be in the mix. And then obviously there's others that you're like, I think they'll definitely be very competitive, but if their goals, I want to have a pro card, again, it comes down to managing expectations. But I think for the most part, you've got a pretty good idea. Again, you can't solidify they're definitely going to be first. But with social media these days, I mean, most people, as they're getting closer to the stage, post more regularly, and so you can see what's what. But I don't think you can lean into that too much either, because no one ever puts a bad photo on Instagram.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to summarize, yeah, I think you can tell if someone's going to be, how they're going to go roughly, but again, you can't guarantee anything.
Yeah. Scott, what would you say? What would you guys say to that athlete? Like, what wording would you use, like, you know, for people to, because you're not going to say, hey, you're going to get that pro card. But, like, you know, what would you say to keep them motivated and encouraged if you know that they've got crazy potential to keep them on? What sort of things might you say?
Well, for example, I've got a couple of athletes who their goals leading into this, and we've been working the last few years, the goal from previous preps, I want to win my pro card and I want to compete, and they've been in it for a while. And there's others that first season I want my pro card, and so straight away I'm like, we need to manage expectations. The goal for your first preparation, let's see if we can get through unscathed. Let's present the best physique that we can. This is where I think you're going to land. We can never guarantee the exact placing. As you said, MT, I can guarantee that I'm going to get you shredded to the bone in the most healthy possible way that I can and the most enjoyable way. And then from there, obviously, we'll see where we land. But I think we need to manage expectations versus if you've got someone who, say, has competed in sports 3 years in a row, won their overall, and they've just missed out at nationals, and they're like, this is the year that I want it, then I think it's okay to be like, okay, this is the goal that we're putting in place. We want to win our pro card. But again, we're not placing our entire emphasis around that specific outcome. Like, we want to present the best physique that we've ever presented. It needs to be better than the last time. You only just missed out last time. So I'm confident if we can present a better physique than last time, we're going to be in the mix. And then really it's out of my hands, it's out of your hands. You just have to see what they like on the day.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. You can look at clients and tell whether they're going to be competitive or not based on the judging criteria, maybe past winners, based on your knowledge of the federation and the categories. You can see that these people are going to be competitive. Do you know if they're going to win? As we said before, we don't know, right? We don't know if they're going to win. Do you ever tell them they're going to win? No. You never, we set the expectations, as we said before in the other question that we answered. So I would never say, hey, you're going to be competitive. You're going to win this. All we do is, MG asked about what would you say to them. You just continue to encourage them and continue to execute the plan and do everything they need to do. Just like you would tell any other client. You just encourage them the same amount. If they're dropping off, you encourage them. If they're executing, you encourage them. But on the flip side, I've had clients that I had no idea they were going to be competitive, clients that have gone from ordinary to extraordinary, and on the day, they're winning every single one of their classes, going to the overall. You know, MG, some of my clients have done that. I was like, I had no idea. They just didn't want to freaking lose, and now they're winning everything. So sometimes as coaches, we don't even know either. Sometimes we don't even know what to expect in the day. And I've had clients, I was like, in my mind, I'd never tell them, but I was like, I reckon they're going to be competitive. I reckon they're going to smash this, and they don't. So we never know, but we have an inkling. But ultimately, as I said, we never know the result. We never know. Things can go in any direction. So that's why you don't tell clients. That's why you don't sometimes tell clients those thoughts, because you can set them up for failure if it doesn't go that way, because we ultimately don't know.
Yeah, there really is that two type of competitors, isn't there? I really want to win. I want to win the overall. I want to win the pro card, and as long as I don't come last.
Yeah.
There's not really anything in between, is there? It's like,
I don't want to come last, and then they win every single class.
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
So next question. Do you think the standard in Season B is going to be decent? And do you know any standouts?
I think the standard's going to be really good. I think there's been quite a few people that have been on ice the last few years because of lockdowns and uncertainty around competitions. So I would assume, especially this year, we don't have any excuses to be like, oh, I didn't have access to a gym, we couldn't train, we didn't know what's going on. So this is probably the first year where everything's just been super normal. And I would assume, and maybe it's the optimist in me, that it's just everything's going to go back to the way that it was. But from what I can tell, and even, talking with you boys and the athletes that we have, I think everyone's tracking pretty well. So I would just assume if, your team's tracking well, then everyone else's is probably in the same boat. So I would assume that, the standard will be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, just to give it like a little insight from obviously having A and B, running and knowing who's competing through messages via Instagram and stuff, because obviously I have access to the page. I'd say this season is going to be unbelievable in terms of quality for the exact same reasons that Scotty said. Just knowing, I know you two very, very closely, and I know who's in your team. You look at Beck's team and stuff. For us, it's going to be the biggest show we've ever had, and the quality, in my opinion, I think it's going to be as good as it's been for 4 or 5 years. So I'm beyond pumped.
I'm excited. I love competitive shows and competitive seasons, because you want to be up against the best, and if your clients are placing well, they've placed well in competitive lineups where they're in a lineup of 12, 8, 10, 15, maybe even more, and you're like, they've done really well. I'd rather clients to do well in big competitive lineups than to win a show that's tiny and small and just grabbed a couple of medals. You know what I mean? So, and it kind of proves your abilities as a coach too. You're putting people in super competitive shows and your clients are doing well, then it kind of proves that you kind of guess you know what you're doing, right? So I like it. I'd rather it this way, and it's good. It's just going to level up the industry. I'm all about getting good bodies on stage and really leveling up the industry, and people just being excited about competing and putting the best up against the best. I think it only levels up the industry every single year. So I love it.
What about this? Can you boys give out one name to watch from your team?
There's one name that I'm very keen, and that's Michael Trimboli, but he's not on my team.
I was like, how do I get out of this question without saying a client's name? And then Scotty says my name because he doesn't want to answer it either.
Yeah, I know. It's tough.
I don't want to answer that question because, again, setting expectations, right?
Well, I've answered it for all three of us, so I'm just saying MT.
Yeah. I think the best way to say it is we all have multiple people competing, and as coaches, we feel like they're all going to be competitive because we feel like we've done our job well. So
yeah, okay. Let's just talk about that for a sec. A lot of people said to me, "Bro, you're going to win your pro card. You got this, Michael. And now you boys they're putting expectations on me." I got zero expectations on myself. I'm being honest. It's been 11 years since I jumped on stage. I know I already look better, and I want to go do some comparison photos of what I did 11 years ago. That's a win for me. Just for me getting through this prep, enjoying it so much, being self-motivated, motivating others, learning so much, being excited about the off-season coming up. I don't care. I could come last. I couldn't care less. Honestly, I couldn't care less. I just want to enjoy myself. That's my mindset now. I guess then when I compete again in a year or two's time, I guess I'm going to have different expectations. I'm going to be like, cool, I actually want to place better than I did last time. And then so on and so forth. But because it's been so long for me, it's just getting through this, presenting well on stage, presenting well for my team and being a good representation for myself is all I really want to do. I don't know who's going to rock up. Jesus, who knows? So
the moral of that is Michael Trimboli will be the standout. Now, Scotty, this won't be, because this will go on YouTube, right? So by the time this goes up and Trimboli posts it, he would have probably posted a photo. So, Scotty, this is a sneak peek for you because, we talk about rib cage in the ass. I think.
Nice. It just keeps blurring. Yeah, that's mad. It's a nice detail, man, and a nice little glute hanging there.
I'm just going to give you one more little teaser, Scotty, because no one can see it on Spotify. But we are.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's funny how when you start to get glutes in shredded, you get to see that hamstring development. It's one of those things where in the off season you can see everyone holds some fat mass there, but when you get that stripped and you can see it hanging off the femur, it's nice. It's good. I will say I think that the classic division is going to be very, very good this year. I think the standard's going to be awesome, and I think there's going to be some really good conditioning. As anyone that watched that on YouTube will just see. And
to put that into perspective as well, that was at my gym this morning. He was in 94 layers plus a freaking Kathmandu, And I just said, take your clothes off, man. I gave him zero notice, zero pump, no nothing. Take your clothes off. That's how you can tell someone's freaking dies. What did you have? Maybe breakfast, and that was it. It was early.
I had my protein pancake.
There you go. So like that's the sign of solid condition when someone can just say, all right, clothes off, let's have a look. And the funny thing was, Jimboli was obviously training one of his athletes who was competing this season as well. He's a fantastic athlete, and like potentially hadn't seen that level of conditioning in person before. Was if that's the first time you've seen someone with the walnut ass, it's a nice thing to watch.
It's funny. You mentioned about development. You don't know development's there in the off season. I've noticed that too. Like as I got lean, I was like, I actually have that muscle there. I didn't even think I had that muscle there.
Yeah.
Like I've actually got some muscle there. I didn't even know that. So it's just funny when you get lean, you don't realize maybe what's hiding underneath, which is exciting.
Well, I commented about your glute insertion this morning because I'm like, far out, man. I didn't know you had such a big belly, but it's exciting.
Boys have got to do hip thrusts.
That's it.
Yep.
Definitely.
Let's move on to similar topic, but personal questions, okay? So when are you all competing next? Oh, you already know about me, so let's go quickly go.
Scott, when am I competing next, man?
We said 2024, didn't we?
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me, man.
I think you and I are going to be competing again together, MG, because
beautiful.
That
was always a bit of a dream. Would be the three of us together.
Yeah,
that'd be fucking awesome.
You and I on the same season.
Then we could do the prep coach series all in prep. That would be
yeah.
That's true. Yeah, and you're gonna do physique next time, though, aren't you, bro?
100%, without a doubt. Yep. Yeah. Look, I love the muscularity poses. They're the ones I practice every day through the whole season, prep and off season. I find the relaxed fitness poses the hardest for me. I love the muscularity poses, so I don't want to miss out on that again. So definitely up to physique.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm going around next year.
Do you know what season?
Yeah, I think season B. Just because there'll be more shows and more shows overseas as well.
So as a pro, because you're a fitness and a physique pro in ICM.
Yeah, so I won't be doing fitness anymore. To be honest, like that last one, it was good, and the main reason I liked fitness is because, as you guys do, I like to train my legs and I like to show them off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be focusing on pro physique, and then if everything goes to plan and I continue to make the progress I've made, I'll probably jump up and jump in classic and see how I go.
Any other feds? Yeah,
so I'll obviously do the ICN shows. I think it depends what's happening with some live stuff. I won't say much about it here now, but next year I might not even be doing some of the shows in Australia for season B. I'll see how I go, but I was also looking if I was going to, or if I do, I'll obviously do the AMB show. I think am I allowed to do that?
Pro show.
Oh, the pro show. Okay. Well, even then I could, but if I'm not a pro in classic, I could jump in amateur classic for AMB, and I'll do the same in NBA. And if there were pro shows for those, if I'm going to be in the country, then I would do that. Otherwise, I'll be overseas. And then I kind of wanted to have a crack at as a natural, but to jump in IFBB men's physique and just see how I go, just for a different experience. To be honest, like.
Yep.
Obviously, doing natural shows is good. I know that obviously those guys are a lot bigger, but I think as naturals, I'd be confident have the ability to be able to match it for conditioning. So, and also, if I come last, but just to see how I go, a different experience as a natty going up against those.
Setting expectations.
Yeah, honestly, I could care less. It'd just be one of those things, and just to see, I'd also be intrigued to see how I would look as a natty going up against other enhanced guys, like how even just visually how it looks like when you look back at photos. I think that it will just be an experience, something that I want to try. I'll never go down the dark side, but yeah, it's something that I can do, so I might try that.
No doubt you'd hold your own in a lineup like that, man. Like
yeah,
with your level of muscularity and obviously the condition you get into. Cool.
Yeah, it just depends, but I think there's going to be some. I know the worlds are going to be. I believe they're going to be in Italy. Actually, I don't know if that's been announced yet, but I'm pretty sure that's where they're going to be next year.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a couple of, again, if I am going to be potentially in the UK next year, there's a couple of shows, natural shows in September, October that are in the UK as well. So that might be something that I would potentially look at. Granted that they're not far away from each other, but we'll just wait and see. But yeah, season B, I think.
Awesome. All right, next question. Do you prefer coaching or competing?
I think coaching, to be honest. If I had to choose, if I could do one ever again, like I love competing, but I could still coach and still like run the process of being a bodybuilder without getting on stage. So I love competing, but if someone said you can never compete again or never coach again,
yeah,
I'd still probably coach because I'm still ingrained in it. I get to go to the shows. I get to live the lifestyle, but I just don't get on stage, which it wouldn't, like, it's not going to ruin my life. So I'd probably say coaching.
Yeah, for me, 100% coaching. Like, I love everything about bodybuilding, everything about the lifestyle. Like we said before, if competing was gone, would I still do this? 100%. The stage is probably the thing I like the least. And you know, a lot of the aspirations and goals I have are for my clients. So 100% coaching for me.
I'd say coaching too, but I'd still like to, if I couldn't compete, I'd like to get into comp conditioning every now and then and do some photo shoots or just, you know,
post back for summer.
Yeah, just post some. Yeah, maybe just walk around the beach with like a walk just to like.
Maybe just walk around the beach. I'm going to do a 26-week prep and just maybe walk around the beach.
I've actually got a lifestyle client of mine who he just doesn't have any desire to compete yet. And we maybe once, sometimes twice a year, normally around summer, we'll literally get him into probably within maybe 2 kilos of 1.5 kilos of contest stage lean, purely because he just wants to see how far he can push himself mentally. And he likes that look of being shredded, and then he'll reverse out, holds the look for summer, and then gains more muscle, but he just doesn't have the desire to get a tan, but loves, like what we do, loves the process. Yeah.
I could live with that. I could definitely live with that. Yeah, for sure. And then, not one other personal ones, we'll just tick off. Have you ever binged or cheated on your prep diet?
Yeah, I did once in my first ever prep, and never since in any of the other ones.
Scotty?
Oh,
you know what it was on? It was what I was doing was making like crazy, like low cal voluminous options. Yeah. And it was not anything dirty. It was just like consuming copious amounts of that. I was making cauliflower like oats, that I was getting like buckets that were this big, man. And I was just getting to the point where I was trying to make so much volume that I'd end up after every meal just feeling like shit and full. So that didn't last long, but yeah, I did. That was definitely something that sticks with me in my brain, and probably taught me what not to do ever again.
Yeah, no, I never have. It's not. I would have a hard time physically being able to do it. I think I was saying to one of my clients this morning, we had this question. I might have had 99 grams instead of 100 grams, like under by a gram. If I'm just like, fuck it, I can't be bothered picking out another rice flake or another, piece of cereal. But I can honestly say, yeah, I've never, ever, ever gone offside. If I'm going to do something, I'm all in 100%. Otherwise, I don't see any point in doing it. So yeah, I've never binged or gone off plan.
Yeah, same. I'm the same as you, Scotty. Meticulous. Couldn't live with myself. Why would I want to cheat for? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Plus or minus 2 macros to every single planned plan. So yeah, man, I get more enjoyment out of that than I would cheating or eating more food. Yeah,
exactly. And I think if you like, and this is how I'd always explain it. Imagine you lost imagine you won the open class and you made it through the overall and you didn't win the overall. And you knew that you had maybe like one little thing or one binge or whatever. I know if it was me, that would, even though it probably wasn't the defining outcome, that would eat me alive, and it would be like embedded in me forever. So I just would rather not do that.
Yeah. And this goes the same with training. Not cheating on your training, giving your training your all, every set and rep, knowing that you're leaving everything in the gym. Like that's the same mentality I have with my diet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like literally to the point, and sometimes to the detriment. Like I've had times where in prep where it probably would have been more sensible to maybe like knowing where I was, like a couple of times, like say for example, I might have pushed a little bit too hard or eaten too much food and then ended up chucking, and then like, nah, I'm just going to continue to see it through, and at the detriment of like maybe if I was with someone else, I'd be like, don't worry about that last set. Like my client I was telling you about before, he fainted after his deadlift, and we had probably another 6 or 7 sets work that we needed to get done, which we just didn't do. Whereas if I'm honest, if that was me in prep, I'd be like, no, I'm just going to fucking stay till I do them.
Yeah.
When in reality, if you boys today, you'd be like, bro.
Yeah, just call it, man. Just call it. Yeah.
Yeah, just go home. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny because that's what we tell our clients too. Like I told a client today, I was like, you know what, don't train because you're too fatigued for other reasons. I said, you got XYZ days coming up. You can train then. You're not working those days. Don't train today. Mm-hmm. So whereas us, we would have just fucking done it. But anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to some nutrition-related questions, and I'm going to try to roll these into the next one. Where is it here? Yeah, thoughts. So we're talking about binge eating. We're talking about cheating, which is down to hunger and things like that. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on people using things like gum, mints, vaping to suppress hunger?
Look, I mean, gum. I don't have an issue with gum. I can't really speak and say that I've got any experience with anything vaping like or vaping related for suppressing of hunger. I wouldn't suggest it to be like a good strategy for trying to suppress your hunger. But I'm not a vapor. I'm not a smoker, so I couldn't really comment there. Gum, sure, but I mean, are you having 30 pieces of gum a day? Is it causing you GI distress? You know, some gums can have a laxative effect as well. So no, we should.
There's also calories in gum. Like that's the other thing as well. If you're like, again, people might find this too meticulous. If my clients are having extra or like chewing gum, you're going to get, I think it's like 6 to 8 calories per one. So if you're having a whole packet of that today because it's watermelon flavor and it tastes good, my guys will typically have 20 gram of carbohydrate allowance towards condiments. If they want to have coffee, milk, whatever, they do with that as they please. But that would fall under that bracket. It wouldn't be like, okay, your intake's 1,600 calories and then you're also having a pack of gum a day, because you could quite easily be having an extra 80 to 100 calories miscellaneously.
Yeah. So I've never used any of those, gum, mints, vaping, any of that kind of stuff. But again, yeah, if you are using any of those, I'd be tracking them if they have calories.
Is vaping, as someone who doesn't smoke or vape, is vaping got calories in it?
I wouldn't think so, but I guess they're talking about vaping as like a suppressant, like how cigarettes can be a suppressant.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I'm hungry, go and have a few
Go and have a vape.
Yeah, because in the greater scheme of things, like cancer is probably worse than a calorie deficit.
Yeah. Actually, I know there's someone on social media that I follow that has a company that has vapes for sleeping, for energy. I think they have one for hunger. It's like these different vapes, like herbal vapes that are for different therapeutic reasons. But I've never looked into it, man. I've never worried about it.
Is that just like
marketing? I don't know.
Yeah, shit wrapped in a nice, pretty box to just be marketed really well.
Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah, I can't see any like physiologically how that would make you not hungry by vaping. Anyway.
Yeah. Next question, rolling into this one, was what do you tell clients that they're constantly food focused or having thoughts about food?
Yeah, I always go down the route of trying to find an alternative distraction. Like it's not necessarily like in our ability to fix what's going on inside your head, but potentially give you strategies to try and deal with the food focus. If food focus is all you have and all you can think about, maybe there's something psychological going on that maybe needs to be addressed. But as a coach, I think within the realm of assisting, it's about offering strategies for distraction, because it's not a good place to be. And if you're solely on food focus and you're still got 18 weeks to go or something like that, it's going to be a fucking long prep. And the chances of you going off plan are far higher. What do you think, Scotty?
I think hunger is something that we sign up for when we decide to go down this path. But I think like everything in contest prep, everything becomes more difficult. There's no one that's in prep that's not in a deficit, that towards the back end, if you're truly shredded, there's no way that you're not hungry. And if you're saying that you're not hungry, then you're not giving it 100% honesty. But I do think that it just depends on how you lean into something. So, and again, I was talking to my client before this, and I think this is something that you're really good at, MT. The way that you approach everything and your mindset around it is essentially going to determine your outlook toward it. So when someone says, oh my God, you must be starving, whatever, you must, life must be shit, you'd be like, no, it's good. I feel grouse. Even if deep down, you're like, fucking hell, they're right. I would never even remotely entertain that and straight away just continue to keep it positive. Someone says something negative and I'll whack it straight back over the fence with something positive. So straight away, that is what I'm telling myself. Because if you're eating your meal, fuck, I'm still hungry. I want to eat. Bro, I'm so hungry. What should I do? Versus, that was so good. And then straight away, I'm going to go and do something to keep me productive. I think the people that focus on food are the ones that perhaps aren't as busy. And I think we're fortunate enough in our industry, like especially you and I, MG, where, when you're in prep, you literally get a meal in when you can and then you're back out on the floor or you're doing check-ins. But I think you just have to constantly keep yourself busy. So if you're like, man, my stomach's grumbly and I'm hungry, then I'm going to go and get a glass of water. I'll go to the toilet. Maybe I'll go and rake some leaves outside or do the pool, whatever it is. And then I'll come back to it and some time will have passed. But essentially, I always look at it, and this is how I respond. If I'm like getting really, really hungry, I would associate it, I'm getting leaner, because I know that that's a byproduct of me liberating fat tissue to support my energy demand. So in my head, like I'm getting leaner, but essentially don't lean into it. If someone says, are you tired? No, I feel really good. How was your training today? Yeah, it was awesome. Crushed it. Even if you're like, fuck, I suffered and it hurt. The way that you approach that and the outlook that you have on it is ultimately going to determine whether your prep is good or whether it's really, really tough.
Yeah, I love that, Scotty. I love everything you just said. How you lean into it, your mindset towards it, what you put your energy towards, what you concentrate on. I could definitely be negative and food focused. Like, I could try to think about all the shit parts of prep and all the shit feelings I could potentially be feeling, but then I'm just going to cascade and just feel more of that and just attract more of that. So it's about the headspace that you're in. Ultimately too, so like also from a practical standpoint, you're going to make sure everything is set up in a way that you're not exacerbating any of that hunger and that food focus. So, staying hydrated, high volume foods.
Even your meal timing as well.
Yeah, meal timing, not highly palatable foods. Setting up your environment in your house or wherever you are to not have those temptations around you. Making sure you have good support systems around you that don't tell you, oh, are you missing out on something? You sure you don't want to have some of this? Sure you don't want to have some of that? Have a piece of this. So as long as you've got all your bases set up of nutrition, sound nutrition, and a sound environment, you shouldn't be exacerbating those feelings. And then it's about, dealing with what you signed up for and putting your mind right and focusing on the right things and not the things you're missing out on, the things that you're achieving and not things that you're not having, right? So, but it happens. Food focus happens. It's not something that has to be constantly there, but it is something that can waver in and out. And getting through it, every single time you get through, you get stronger. So just think about, if I get through it now, I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to build up that tolerance. It's just like training. If I suffer now through this set, I'll be stronger. So next week I can do better. And next week I can do better. If you keep selling yourself short and not trying to push, you're never going to get ahead. So,
and don't sit around waiting for your next meal. If it's really like that bad, do something productive. Go and have a shower. Go for a walk. Go and cut the grass. Like, go and do anything to take you outside of where that is, because at some point it will actually pass. If you become engrossed in doing something else, like say you're like, you know what, I haven't cleaned the pool for ages, fuck it, I'm going to go and do that. It might take you an hour to do that. And by that stage, mentally, you've just switched off those hunger receptors because you're focusing on what you're doing at the time. And then you'll come back to it and you're like, oh, maybe I am still pretty hungry, but I've only got another 45 minutes, so I can hold out. But if you just eat and then you wait around or you watch a movie and you're not doing anything, you're going to hurt. So I think just try and keep busy.
I literally told that to a client like 20 minutes before this podcast, I was like, you know what type of person you are? Get out of the house today.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sit in your house today because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, go to the shops, go shopping. Don't buy it. Like, go to Doncaster, get some steps in, have a look around, get a coffee. That's something that I'll always do. If I know on my low days when my food is typically going to be low and I'm hungry, I might go and get a long black, and I know I've got to get steps in, and maybe I'll just walk around Doncaster. I'm like, oh, what's that? Or if you're going to go to the supermarket, you can do things that need to be ticked off within your day, and then make it a productive period of time rather than just focusing on a negative that, fuck, I'm hungry and I want to do this. You know, again, switch the paradigm.
All right, let's go one more question. This will be the 15th question that we're going to answer today. So we've done pretty good, guys.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips, tricks to help save time in the kitchen? How do you guys prep your food for the week?
Yes. So
MG?
Yeah, well, just because of the amount of hours we do here, obviously having to be present on the gym floor and not having, my full book as an online presence. For me, it's all about bulk prepping. But I don't separate my containers or anything. I do all my proteins, I do all my veggies, I do all my carbs. So for me, I do a pot of rice on a Sunday. I do, maybe a whole bag of charismas, which is what, 4 or 5 kilos. I might just go half in the oven, half in the air fryer. I'll do all of my chicken in the oven, and then I'll do all of my veggies either in a steam pot or something. Put them all in their own containers, and then just serve it out as I go from the week, because I do get an opportunity to go home. If I leave for work in the morning, I just need to weigh out my one meal, take that, because I know I'm going to be home by 12. So that's how I do things. I think just understand your lifestyle and understand how to set yourself up for success. If you know you're going to be out for a lot of hours, don't rely on being able to find something, because it never works out. There's not anything out there that you can get that quick that is going to, suit your macro plan. And if it is, it's probably going to be far too ineffective with cost to do long-term anyway. So I think it's just, understanding your lifestyle, your time. But I would say bulk prep, keep everything separate, put it into containers as you need it is what works for me. But I know there's others out there who like to bulk prep and separate each into individual containers and weigh it. Again, that works too. But that's just definitely what works for me.
Yeah, I probably am a little bit different, because I don't meal prep. It'll typically just be like chicken, or if it's beef mince or whatever, turkey mince, whatever, will be cooked in advance. And so I'll have whatever those cooked weights are. But essentially I eat my first meal very early before I leave. And then similar to you, MG, I'm fortunate enough, my house is 3 minutes from the gym. So I'll literally duck home and I can have my rice cooked fresh. And then typically I'll bring my third meal back to the gym with me, which will normally be either, it depends on what stage I'm at, but it might be potatoes with veg or whatever. And again, chicken. And then I'll always cook my evening meal fresh, or Jen will get it ready for me. So when I get home, I can eat that. But I typically like to put a bit more effort into what I'm eating for dinner, because during the day it's kind of like scoff and go. And so I think it's important at the back end, if you can take a bit more, like, it's funny how the lengths you go to present your food a bit better. Like, instead of having charismas and chicken and veg, I'll typically have like a chicken stir fry, and then I'll have charisma wedges with like 15 mils of tomato sauce. And so I'll have like an entree of wedges and tomato sauce and a Coke Zero, and then I'll have my chicken and my vegetables, and then I might have like yogurt before I go to bed or something. So I think it just depends on what fits for you. But if I was a 9 to 5er, then that obviously wouldn't work. And I would just say, you just got to be prepared, because the worst thing that you can do is put yourself in an environment where you're without access to the food that you need, and you've got to make a decision on the fly. It's never, ever going to end favorably.
Yeah, totally agree.
But you're the only guy deleting 5,000 calories using low-calorie sauce.
Yeah, although, as I said, the Ayam sweet chili, it's no longer, man. I'm on the full, whatever it is. It's still not that high calorie. It's like, I think, 32 calories per serve. So
is that for the full sugar?
I think so. To be honest, I don't even pay attention. I actually don't even weigh out that sauce, because I think at that point, it doesn't really make a difference, man.
Yeah, I know, man.
If I was in prep, obviously I would. But did you jump on that, MT?
Man, I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it, but I'm not fussed. Like, I'm happy with what I'm eating, so
yeah,
not too fussed.
Yeah, cool.
For me, it's meal prep. I think if you want to be successful, there it is there. He's got it. He's got the He's got the switch really there.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, you've just got to allocate time and energy to meal prep. That's as simple as that sounds. You've just got to allocate time and energy and make it a priority and fit it within your schedule. Just like how you would your sleep, just how you would your training, your steps. It's an integral part of your fitness lifestyle. So you need to put time and energy into allocating time to it. Now, whether that's allocating time once a week, twice a week, or on a daily basis, based on your schedule, you need to fit it in, you need to allocate time. You need to, depends how time efficient you want to be, depends how creative you want to be, will depend how much time you actually spend doing the cooking. For me, the main meals, lunches and dinners are cooked a couple of days in advance. But I love meal prepping so much because that's my time when I listen to podcasts. I'll be taking in information. I'll be doing stuff. So think about it as maybe if you like to watch Netflix, that's when Netflix is on your phone in your meal prep, right? So I'm going to get my shows done and I'm going to get my meal prep done. Or I like to listen to podcasts. I'm going to get my podcast done plus my meal prep done. That's how I see it. So I make it as a really productive time and a time of meal prepping, which I enjoy, but also educational or doing things that I also enjoy at the same time. But as I said, I do my main meals. I prep them in advance, a couple of days in advance. I'll go to the point where I'll prep my breakfast the night before. I'll prep how much protein powder I'm going to have in my protein shakes the day before, so that on the day I'm just literally grab and go. And I like that time at night because it helps me wind down, and I'm like mixing my protein, making my protein pancake mixture. I'm listening to a podcast and I wind down for the night and I go to bed. So try to make it enjoyable where you can, but realize that you need to put time and energy into this to be successful.
Yeah.
Boys, that was awesome. We knocked out a lot. We covered a lot of different topics, and I'm sure people are going to get a lot of value out of this. Thank you for all the questions that you asked, the anonymous questions. There's a couple we didn't get to, more bodybuilding industry related, but I think we covered off the main topics and what people were really after. Again, we're going to put it out there. If you have any more questions for the next one, we will definitely put it out there. We love getting them. We love going through them, and we love doing these podcasts and giving information back to you guys.
Well said.
It was a good chat. See you guys next week.
Thanks, boys. Take care.
Boys, have a good one.